I caught you on a face or Instagram live, and I kind of, I don't know, you don't know this, but I kind of probed the waters. I was like, I want to see this guy's like mindset around things, because I specialize in ketogenic diet, but I'm not tied to it at all. Like I use it as an intervention tool to try to get people back to balance. And I asked you about it, and you weren't you weren't the typical like, oh, keto's so stupid, blah, blah, blah. You didn't have the ego. I was like, so I appreciated that. You were just like, well, here's what I think works long term for people, but you didn't diss it. So I was like, okay, this guy's cool. Let's talk. He gets it. So I was wondering, I guess keto is a great way to get into this, because a lot of people have these beliefs about things like, if I eat carbs, I will get fat. And I think both of you and I are living proof that you can eat carbs and not be fat. But what are some other common beliefs that you see people have around fitness and getting in shape that you think holds them back?
I think a lot of it is the same as a lot of things in life. It's people's limiting beliefs about themselves, and that they don't feel that they don't actually believe in themselves, that they can achieve the body they want, the business they want, and they ultimately hold themselves back like a glass ceiling, thinking that that's there, that doesn't really exist. And I would say that's probably one of my gifts, is helping people smash through that and see past that, because it's almost like unlocking the door for people. And like, it's like the penny drop moments when they realize like, oh, you can eat carbohydrates, and suddenly like the world's not going to collapse, and you're not going to gain tons of body weight. And it's interesting you mentioned that question on that IG live, because I must have put it quite politically correctly, because it can sometimes be taken the wrong way. But because like, I don't personally tend to advocate keto for most people, because
Right.
I like to have a sustainable approach. And my first question to everyone is like, when they're doing, oh, I'm doing keto to lose weight, it's like, okay, cool. Do you like carbohydrates? My first question, because if it is, I'm like, that's probably not the first choice of thing I would do. Um, so I would say the big thing that holds people back is just the limiting belief. And I think the second thing would be, it's not like the general public's fault. It's unfortunately the media puts out a lot of BS out there, and the supplement companies and
Mm-hmm.
all this crap. And it's so frustrating, because
Mm-hmm.
there's like, people can't see the wood through the trees, because there's so much misinformation, and
Yep.
they don't know who to believe. And you must get that on a daily basis.
Oh, it drives me. I rant about this all the time. It's frustrating when you have people come to you and they're like running in circles with all this information that I'm like, you don't even need to know that. And that's like, we don't even know if that's true or not. And you're living in this crazy paradox, this crazy belief system that's causing you to feel disempowered. So yeah, I feel you on that. And I love what you said about belief. I interviewed another coach. He has a coaching company out here where I live, and he was a drug addict for a long time. I just did a podcast with him recently, and I mean, all the way, like heroin, meth, like he went all the way. And he's been sober for quite a while now. And he talked about the thing I loved. Like one of my favorite points in the interview was he said, like, what actually got him there was like he had the desire to change a bunch of times, right? And a lot of people have a desire to get fit like a million times, right? But he said what changed it was he actually believed he could. So, could you speak on that a little bit, like what, on how you help people get there on the belief?
I think a lot of it is just making it relatable to the clients as individuals, and like, like, it sounds corny, but like uncovering their why. Because everyone's like, oh, guys,
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, I want to get abs, but like, okay,
Yeah.
why do you want to get abs? Is it because you want to have more confidence? Do you want your wife to have sex with you again?
Right.
One, like,
Right.
what is it you actually want? What is
Yep.
the end product of having the abs you want? So that's the first thing we truly try and narrow down with people, is like, okay, what's your goal, and like, why do you want that specific goal? Like, and how much does that mean to you? And then when
How often, sorry, real quick, how often do you find people have like know that right off the bat?
they don't,
Like ever, right?
and
Yeah.
it's like you can see the cogs turning, and they're like, oh shit, that's why. Um,
Yep.
and that's when the penny drops, and they suddenly realize the value to this. And then it's when it's not hard work for them, and it's not difficult for them to stick to it, because then they actually understand, oh, that's why I want to be in shape, is because I want to be alive to see my daughter get married and walk down the aisle, or whatever it might be.
Right.
And that's when people are like, okay, it's more than just working out, because it's about fulfillment, happiness, and also about the other people within your life, not just yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I have a mindset coach. And one of the things that he says I love so much is that when it comes to like your goals and your values, whatever you truly value, you will choose that. Your values will always win out. And so when somebody is like in that situation where there's donuts and brownies and all the things, but they know they have that clarity of what they value most, they're like, do I want donuts and brownies, or do I want to see my daughter go down the aisle? Like that helps people latch on to something. And I love your point on that, because it's like if they don't have that, then in the moment they don't even really know what they value. They're like, right now I value donuts. Donuts sound like a very important value to me right now.
And here's the saying for you: is like your like this is something that I actually posted on Facebook today, and it's your life is purchased by where you spend your attention, because like what you actually invest your awareness into is where you'll get results and where you'll have progress within life. So if you're constantly getting drawn to negativity
Yeah.
and pulled into negativity in this world, which, to be honest with you, like I just said before the podcast, I've had a pretty shit 2 days. I'm now in Istanbul where I wasn't supposed to be, and I've been in a pretty bad mood, and I'm trying to get myself out of that. And
Yeah.
people, obviously, we have a lot of issues going on in the world at the moment. Like, it's not necessarily the easiest thing for people to be. Not everything's plain sailing, but it's learning to try and pull yourself back onto course to the positives, if that makes sense.
Yeah, self coaching,
Yeah.
right? Do you have any insights on that? On how people can coach themselves through the difficult moments better?
The first thing you need just comes down to being self-aware. So
Yeah.
one thing I would suggest everyone does is and it's quite a harsh thing to do because it's often people closest to you who want to hold you back, is to try and cut off and maybe minimize the amount of time you spend with people who are negative in your life. So,
Yeah.
like, respectfully, if you listen to this, like a lot of my family members can be like that, even like my parents, although I love them dearly, like they have
Mhm.
quite a negative, fear-minded view of the world, of scarcity. Whereas if you have an abundance mindset, you have the attitude where I can do anything I want. I can achieve anything I want. I can, like, for me, like success in life is, and all I've ever wanted is to be able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want. That's like
Mhm.
total freedom.
Mhm.
And then the same from like a nutritional point of view is to be able to be like, okay, I want to be able to perform great, look great, and then like eat what I want within reason and have freedom in that respect.
Mhm.
And my body to be able to move, and I've got this vehicle for life that I can enjoy. And that's, again, really something I try and empower men and women with, because when again they understand the why of working out and why being healthy is important, it's because like you only have this one vessel for a certain period of time, and you want to try and look after it so you can like enjoy the roller coaster of life as much as possible.
Oh yeah. That's definitely how I feel. Okay. I want to dig into you a little bit more if that's okay. So you grew up in England, yes?
England, so Surrey, just outside of London.
Okay. And so I'm curious what the catalyst was. Like your parents, grew up in scarcity. A lot of our parents did. Like the economy in most of the world just like was not what it is now back then, and there was no internet, there was no psychology really, people just didn't have that kind of awareness. So like what happened? Like if you guys go to his Instagram, you can go to Charlie Johnson Fitness, and you've obviously you weren't like born with like abs and muscles and well, you were, but not to the point of hypertrophy that they are now. So like what was the catalyst for both like your body and your mindset that took you from being raised in scarcity mindset to like, hold on, I can do whatever I want here?
So this is actually a very, very interesting conversation. So you spoke earlier about like how to really help yourself level up, and something I've done recently, which has made a big difference, and something a lot of men particularly aren't open to doing, is working with a psychologist. So he's actually a transactional therapist, I think is the technical term. So for me
Mm,
to get a greater understanding of myself and the way I think, because sounds a bit odd, but I'm quite robotic in terms of my thought process, and a bit emotionless and a bit of a machine in terms of
mm,
like, do this, do this, do this, and just try and structure routine to try and like run my life, and he almost started to unravel the layer of the onions, like of my childhood and things like that, and that's where everything like revolves back down to. So, for example, I was overweight when I was younger, and one of the things that came up with him was that I overheard my parents saying that I was overweight, and that's always
Mm,
like something that's almost scarred me in my mind.
right.
And I didn't really change anything. Like, I tried to change probably from 16 to 24, and I was like everyone probably listening to this. I was working out all the time. I actually probably spent more time training then than I do now, and I just wasn't getting anywhere because I was doing the wrong things. I was putting all this energy into the wrong direction, a little bit like we were saying earlier, because there's so much misinformation out there.
Hmm.
And that's why I personally take it very passionately in terms of getting frustrated for other people when I can see they work, but then they don't get the progress they make, if that makes sense. So um, that's very much probably what's driven me in terms of from like improving my physique and learning that, because I'm not necessarily genetically gifted. I've had to learn the hard way because I've done all the stupid stuff everyone does, like cheat days and all that crap, which people think is a good idea. So that's very much what I would say in terms of a physique and fitness side of things. And from the rest of my life, like in trying to be successful, quote unquote, a lot of that all comes down to trying to prove a point to my parents as well. Came out from speaking to the psychologist, so seeking approval.
Hmm.
Which when you start to like, when I was on the call with him and he worked this out, I was like, holy shit! Like, I'd never thought about it in that respect.
I love what you're saying here. I do a lot of coaching with a coach who does the work of Byron Katie.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of self questioning. And one of the questions that she asks in that process is, when was the first time, when was the youngest that you remember feeling that way? That is such a powerful question. And I love that I love what you're saying. And I love that you're sharing that so vulnerably, because this is how I see it. Like, I follow a lot of success mindset people, right? Like, I want all up in their minds. I want to see how they think, you know? And one thing that I've learned from people who have achieved a lot of success in life is that very often it's rooted in pain. It's rooted in proving. It's rooted in some sort of trauma, and trauma's relative. Like, trauma could be, yes, like hearing your parents say to your brother, like, wow, you are so much better at this than, or something. And that belief system sticks. But what I've learned is that what I think is so cool about it and speaks to the human experience is that who's to say that that wasn't perfect exactly as it is, because that through that pain, look what you were able to create. You didn't even realize it was coming from that place. Like, you were just on autopilot, like, this would be awesome to do to get super fit and build this big business. But through that, you've been able to help thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. And now you still have that window of opportunity to heal and learn, but you got all those skills along the way, you know? So I always tell out with my clients, I'm like, quote unquote unhealthy motivations, like, just don't just allow your path to go the way it is, because maybe that was for a purpose. Maybe that was to help you get to where you're trying to get. And then once you have those skills and you can heal, like, now you've just reached another level in life. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on that.
Um, Another thing I'd say that in terms of a drive perspective, that's quite an interesting conversation is, and again, this is something else that came up, is that I'm very much driven by fear of failure rather than seeking success.
Mm,
So like, that's what pushes me more than anything, because I feel like there's a burning fire underneath me and I'm trying to stay above it.
right.
And like John, the guy I work with, is like, okay, this isn't really a good way to think about things, but it obviously works for you, so I don't really want to disrupt it. But
Right.
like, you just need to be aware of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I interviewed another like really successful entrepreneur recently on my podcast, and that's what he was like. I've learned that some people are faith driven, visualization driven. Like, that's me. I'm driven more like I meditate a lot, and I get these like images, and I'm like, I know that they're going to happen, and I drive towards it because it's like I've already seen it. And he's like, but there's some of us who are more fear motivated, that we're running from certain things. But you're exactly right. It's like, I feel like there's so much shaming, unnecessary shaming. It's just kind of like, you know what? Like allow people to be in the place that they're in. And as you continue to do your inner work and heal, you know what I mean? Like you can still take the skills that you've learned from that place and apply it in your life and become healed. That's how I see it anyway. But yeah, everyone's kind of coming to success from a little bit different place.
I think the one thing I'd say is that like people need to be more open and honest to talk about their not psychological issues, but their
Mhm.
what makes them who they are. Because I think
Mhm.
more so with men that they're very, very afraid of opening up and talking about that, which is
Mhm.
why, again, this is something I want to try and vocalize more. And I talk about a lot now. It's just that like life's not necessarily easy, and like everyone has the challenges. Like no matter, even look at like someone like Britney Spears, for example, like is a perfect
Yeah.
example. So people would have looked at her from the outset when she was, whenever she hit fame, 16, 18, like the woman's got the world. However, people don't see the pressure that necessarily comes with that, and maybe the problems that come with that. And that
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily mean that someone's happy. So one of the good things that this guy I worked with asked me was like, okay, so like I said, okay, these are the goals I have when I was 35. And he's like, okay, so what you can do when you do that, and then you've got all this spare time. I'm like, right. And I was like, then because this is the reality of the world is that when most people, like in particular, I've competed before, for example, not that it's necessarily my gig, but like people set this goal of like, okay, I'm gonna do a competition or photo shoot. And then when you've done it, there is, I can't quite describe more of a vacant feeling afterwards. You're like, oh, what do I do now? That literally is the feeling. I don't know if you've
I'm
had anything similar.
so I just did my first bikini competition 3 weeks ago, and I'm doing another one a week from today at the time of recording this. I've always been actually quite opposed to that industry. I did it as a professional experiment, because I work with a lot of post competitors, and that is why I've struggled with it. Is because what you're talking about, they're like in limbo kind of because they've got this well, they have body dysmorphia most of the time, and they've also got they're lost. They're like sailing on the seas of like, I don't really know how to make this a sustainable lifestyle. But I would say in general, I always tell my clients, I'm like, achieving your goal is going to be the most underwhelming moment ever. It's not that exciting. I achieved my goal weight. The first time I achieved my goal weight and I stepped on the scale, it was like, oh, now what? Okay, well, here I am. It's actually it's the excitement, I think. And who says this? I forgot who says this quote. Oh my gosh, but it's like it's not the goal that matters, it's who you become in the process of it. And I think that's what most of us are after is the growth and the journey. So it's like don't forget to enjoy that part because it's the best part. When you actually get there, it's kind of like, meh, it's not
So
that exciting.
here's a very good something I want everyone to take on board and think about with everything in life. And this is something I'm trying to think about all the time when I get frustrated or I feel like things aren't moving fast enough is when you're scaling the mountain, sometimes you need to stop and take a look back and enjoy the view.
Yeah.
Because think sometimes how many people would kill to be in the position you're in.
Yep.
Like particular now, like in the UK, for example, gyms have been closed for like 4.5 months. So even for someone just have the opportunity to go to the gym, like a lot of people probably be like all over it. So and then some people can't even be bothered to work out. So it's um, that sometimes I think is quite a good way to look at things and just think about like you sometimes also need to see how far you've progressed. So even for example, say if you're a guy and you're 100 kilos and your goal was to get to 70 kilos and you've got down to 90 kilos, then like take like happiness and fulfillment that you've made that first progress and you've already
Mhm.
lost 10 kilos, and then you can look at scaling the rest of the mountain. Because the problem is like with everything in life and say competing and all these other things is that it's almost like a constant battle of false summits.
Right.
You set a goal, you get there and you're like, okay, now I feel unfulfilled, because it's never as good as you think when you get there. And you're like, okay, what do I do next? So then you look for another goal and you're just
Right.
constantly in that hamster wheel.
Well, and the other thing too is like we're reward driven beings. So if we're never giving ourselves that moment of reward, like so you achieve something and you're just like, yeah, whatever, next. It actually for me, I feel like it decreases performance. Like once I'm like, yeah, girl, good job. You freaking did that. I want to do it again. We're still like little kids with little gold stars on our charts in elementary school. Like, I'm like, gold star, gold star, gold star. I like giving myself gold stars because it makes me want more gold stars. And it's fun that way. And it's self-loving that way instead of this chronic, like, not enough, not enough, not enough. It's like, yeah, girl, I just did the other day. Like, I'll fully vulnerably admit, like, there's a huge influencer I follow on Instagram. And I was like, dude, I know my physique looks so much like hers. If I do a little bit of tweaking, I can get right there. And I saw a video that I released recently, and a few posts down was her. And I was like, did it, did it, did it. I was like, good job, girlfriend. Like, I tell myself that, you know,
You can't say it. Who was it now?
No, I can't.
You can't say who it is.
Don't ask me to be that vulnerable. God, no, I'm not saying it.
So anyone needs to tag this to their stories on Instagram, and we'll put some pressure on you to tell us.
Oh my God. Okay, fine. I'll say, okay, not exactly, but pretty close. Her glutes are definitely better than mine. But Sonata Greca, I don't know how you say her name. She's got like 1 million or 2 million followers on Instagram, but it's pretty close. I was like, good job. Let's talk about that for a second, because you're pushing 500,000 followers on Instagram. I don't know what you have on Facebook. Is that also a large following, I'm assuming?
150,000, I think.
Okay. So like, what has that journey been like? I always say being a social media influencer is like one of the biggest personal development journeys a person can go through. Like, you have to learn a lot about thick skin, letting things go. Not everyone's going to like you. Like, can you share some insights on what that journey's been like for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So I'm going to break it down to a few stages. So like initially, stage one, everyone's like, who do you think you are? Why are you posting this? Why are you posting photos with top off? Like,
and you're probably your own fear stories. They're confirming them for you.
So yeah, literally.
Yeah.
So your own limiting beliefs and self-doubt, then people are just throwing that at you as well, which you like.
Right.
So like, this is interesting as well, because when I first started using social media and started like doing like online coaching, because people were coming to me, I worked in a full-time job at the time, and loads of people were like wouldn't say it to me, but in like the gym I was going to at the time, would say to my friends, being like, what's Charlie doing? Who does he think he is? Like, he's got a wife, he shouldn't be doing this sort of stuff, posting photos with his top off, all this sort of shit.
Right.
Like,
yep.
Now I see that I occasionally I see these people, and then like, we don't have to say anything. We just look, and I'm just like, yeah, fuck you. Like, I was waiting to swear from the last one.
No, you're fine. We swear.
You know, you're like they know and I know. I'm like, yeah, it's like I know what you used to say. So like that is the one thing as well. Like, you have to be very thick-skinned with anyone listening to this. Like, if you have a goal that you want to go and achieve something, don't let someone say you can't do it. Like, okay, you want to be the fastest person in the world, run 100 meters. Like, realistically, it's not going to happen. However, but like, if you want to try, you want to go all in, and you want to try it, go for it. That's on you. Like,
right.
Don't let anyone else say you can't do something. Would be the first thing I'd say. And then like, that's probably the initial journey, I think, of social media that everyone gets. So people are like, oh, you changed. Why are you doing this now? Why? Like, you must have had that.
Yep. And your worst fears will be confirmed to you. Exactly what you think is going to happen. Yep, that's going to happen. And I think what helped me the most was like, for me, I was like, it's not about me. This isn't about me. Like, I feel called to what I'm doing. Right. So when I can let that go, I'm like, you know what? And on your note about the people at the gym, I like, being real, like, drove past an old neighbor where they were like big time haters when I first started influencing fitness. And I drove by that guy and I was like, I cannot believe that I ever cared what that guy thought of me. I'm like, sorry, but I'm like, who cares what he thinks? Like, he's not involved in my life. Like, I'm like helping all these people and living free. And it's like, man, like, just know it's going to come, but just let it go. If you've got your vision, like, go. But you can expect that your worst fears are going to get confirmed to you. Yeah.
100%.
All right, next phase.
The next phase is when you start getting the trolling phase, and you start probably getting a bit of traction, and you probably, for the first time, you start getting random people you don't even know start abusing you, or like DMing you shit or whatever. Or it probably, like, I don't really get this as a man, but I would imagine as a woman you probably get a lot of unsolicited messages. I'll put it like that politely. Like, that is a new learning curve of, again, getting thicker skin.
Hmm.
because I probably get an abusive message or comment a couple times a day, I reckon, at the moment.
A couple
I even
times a
had
day. Wow.
yeah, I
So
even
what do you
had
do?
I just ignore them or block them. I
Block
tend to
them.
block them, but
Yeah, me too.
I would never respond because, well, this is a very good example for anyone who is an influencer. A friend of a friend who had about 500,000 followers in the Netherlands, someone trolled her and gave her a load of grief, and she like bit back, and then he reported her comment, and she got account disabled. Her whole livelihood was like Instagram.
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah, that's why, like, personally, I'm big into like, I only want to focus my energy on positive stuff. So if something's negative, I don't want to know about it. I'll just delete it, block it, and like goodbye. If you want to waste your unconscious energy like throwing shit at other people, then great, go for it. But you don't build the biggest skyscraper in town by like pulling down all the other ones. So people need to have focus on themselves rather than negatively on other people. And I actually, this is an interesting point because I noticed that a lot in the UK fitness scene, that some of the like quote unquote older guard who are maybe like late 30s, early 40s, they tend to like to post a lot of stuff with like negative connotations, or like a lot of people in the
Hmm.
fitness industry do would be like, or say, for example, they'll say like why you shouldn't do keto, or
Yeah.
um, they'll talk things down rather than explaining the benefits of things. They might, so like instead of saying like keto shit, you don't want to do it, you might say, okay, maybe keto's not for you because you want to do a sustainable approach, you like carbohydrates. Like they won't tell the benefit, they'll just tell the negative of everything.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's something you come across.
I'm smiling because I just wrote a post about this like yesterday or the day before. So there's a movie called Pain and Gain. It's like a silly
Yeah.
comedy movie, and he's like there's a guy who's like a personal development motivational speaker, but he's kind of like a total a-hole in the background. But he has this little phrase that he says that I love, and it's do be a doer, don't be a don'ter, right? And it's like a cheesy thing where he's like, do be a doer, don't be a don'ter. But I'm like, actually, for real though, that's I like that. Like, because in the fitness, I just wrote about this. I'm like, we don't need a bunch of posts saying like, you're doing it wrong, stop doing this, like constantly. It's just like
Help
that just
people.
it disempowers people and it makes them scared. It's like just teach them how you think they should do it and then they can go try it. That's it. We don't have to sit here and like slam everything or like overwhelm people with tons of random information about like I give the example of like, why am I getting asked by the general public about peptides when they don't even eat healthy? Like, why do they need peptides? So anyway, yeah. But I have noticed that's interesting you mentioned that age demographic. I definitely see that, and I surrounded myself with those people in the fitness industry for a while. The egos, and the strength coaching and hypertrophy coaching communities are full of it, and it's just all this like, this is the right way, and if you don't know how to do it like me, then you're an idiot. It's kind of that vibe. And what I've noticed is that the energy of their following is very disempowered. They've kind of become like codependent. It's like a weird codependent energy towards that coach of like, oh yeah, like whatever you say, like that's the right way to do it. And
Like a
I
cult.
don't like that energy in the client. Like I believe it should be the other way around. I believe our job is to help empower the client and help them see like, well, how does it feel when you do it like that? Close your eyes, feel it. Okay, how's that feel? They're like, oh yeah, got it. Right. So then they leave empowered instead of being like, well, Tara says you have to put your elbow at 34 degrees. So yeah.
Yeah, this actually reminds me, I don't know why. So moment at the moment, I get slated a lot for like exercise. Like I'm not, my exercise execution is pretty good, and a friend of mine unfortunately tore his pec um, rather dramatically when we were filming for YouTube with Larry Wheels, and it went super viral. So
Oh,
now whenever I do an incline bench press, I get slagged off saying,
of
"Oh,
course.
your form was incorrect. You shouldn't be doing this." And I'm like, it's not. And but like, and I literally I say to them, I was like, what's the goal of this exercise for you? What are you trying to achieve? Because the way you do a specific movement is very much objective of the outcome you're looking to try and achieve. And that's very
Hmm.
much the way I coach people, is I have an objective approach to everything. Is like, okay, cool. What is the end goal of every single training session, every single
Exactly.
set? Whereas people go into things like blindly in life, like, I'm gonna go work out. It's like, okay, what are you trying to achieve with this? You're just working out, like, do you know what I mean?
Yes, like biggest mind bender ever. There's not one right way to do a squat. There's not one right way to do anything. So many of us are caught in right, wrong thinking. Right way, wrong way. And it's like, guess what? If you want to bias your quads, you can squat a certain way. If you want to bias your glutes, you can squat a certain way. And everybody's bone structure and body is different. So there's not like, you can't take some 300-pound like giant guy with totally different hips and me and put us in. It's like, this is the right way. Like it's what are you trying to achieve, and how can we do that with your body to help you get there? So yeah, I agree 100%.
That's that is probably one of the most frustrating things I see. And again, as you said, where everyone takes everything so literally that like, oh, I respect him. He's very like Kasim Hansen, for example, says you should do an incline bench press like this. It's like, yeah, that's awesome. That's for whatever like result he's trying to achieve. But if someone's, I don't know, say for example, a strength athlete, they're probably going to have a slightly different approach. Like it's not, it's something a guy who helps me with a lot of my training called Nick Loft says, it's like not what you know, but it's what you can prove a lot of the time. So for example, in this session with my friend Torres Peck, we were training with Larry Wheels, who's obviously phenomenally strong. And I saw Larry warming up and I was like, holy shit, like that's interesting form. But it's like, I'm not going to say anything because he did 5 plates on an incline bench press. I did 3. So, like, okay, that works for you. You go for it. Like, that's cool. And I'll stick to my things. So, like, people should learn in a lot of things in life. Like, stay in your lane, like with what you're trying to objectively achieve. And if someone has a slightly different path, let them do them and you do you, if that makes sense.
Yep. So I went through a phase of, it was when I was first a trainer, and I was already like really fit, right? I had I felt like I was in a great groove, like I was happy and empowered, and like I wasn't tracking my food. I was just living a healthy lifestyle, getting great results in the gym. And I started to learn from all the experts, right? I was like, who are the best in the world? I'm going to go to get a bunch of certifications and go to camps, may or may not include someone you just mentioned. And as I learned from these experts, and I totally drank the Kool-Aid. I did what like a lot of the general public does, is like, oh, the way I do everything is wrong and the way they do everything is right. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to get completely out of my power. I'm just going to do whatever they say. I lost a lot of muscle mass and gained a lot of body fat through that. And it took me honestly like a couple years of like restoring my self-confidence of like, no, Tara, guess what? When you do it like this, that's how you feel it. This gets you results. You already know what gets you results, right? So there should be, I feel like a certain level of professionalism. It's beyond just giving people the advice and tips and tricks and biomechanics. It's also making sure that they are in their power and empowered, and that they are doing it in a way that makes sense to them and that they feel it. So like that guy you're giving an example of, like for you, you're like, what the that looks so weird the way you're doing that. But I look, like you said, look at the results. Like I look at somebody who has like massive pecs and I'm like, dude, whatever you're doing is working.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah.
I think it's
Respecting
one of
that.
those things. And that's, again, um, interestingly, in terms of self-development, I'm actually naturally a very introvert and quiet person. I like spending a lot of time on my own. And that's why I've always been quite a big believer in the sort of the two ears, one mouth approach in terms of like particular coaching. It's like, listen to what people say. Like if they say something that works for them or they feel something better a certain way, like, yes, you can try and guide them to try something else. And if they try that and it doesn't work for them, or they feel it doesn't work for them, then you should listen to that, generally, would be mine. Unless it's
Right.
something dangerous, obviously, but people need to be more involved in a two-way process in terms of coaching and helping people get results, rather than like, which is one thing that frustrates me with a lot of other people, is it's a very two-dimensional, this is the only way to build muscle or the only way to build fat. And it's like, that's bullshit, because realistically, like, I could come up with a Mars bar diet tomorrow. It'd probably make loads of money. It's probably a really good idea. And be like, okay, you can eat like, you can probably eat 6 Mars bars a day. That's all you eat, and you lose like tons of body fat. How's that sound? Cool, let's do that. Like, it would work for a while. It's still horrendous. I would never recommend it, but like, you get my drift of where I'm coming from.
Totally. 100%. What was the third phase? Did we hit that? Your third phase?
No, we haven't got to that bit yet. I would say the next bit, now this is going to start slagging not people, but the fitness industry a bit. when you start to go like up again, I think into the fitness industry, you then start to get lured into like the influencer like this is actually probably the biggest insult anyone ever gave me. Was I think someone called me an Instagram influencer on like DM or something, and I was like, I had to send him a video message like, wait, hold your horses, my friend. Like, I've got a lot of other shit going on. I'm definitely not an Instagram influencer. I don't like get paid to post and all that sort of stuff. But the big thing I think when you go into that realm is you suddenly realize how fake all of it is in social media and how it's a charade. And you start to meet these people who you maybe idolized before and you looked up to, and you're like, you're not what I thought you were. Like, this is BS. And like, and you suddenly realize a lot of them are narcissistic pricks, to be respectful. I'm not going to name anyone, but like, I'm just being honest. And that's like, I'm just a real person, and I can tell you are, and I just try and come across as it is. And that's what frustrates me most about like social media and the la la land of it all. And that's what, particularly Instagram, that's why I quite like podcasts and long form content like this, because you can put your personality across more and who you are.
Yeah.
Rather than like, people need to understand, particularly Instagram, is the highlight reels of people's life. Like, everything is airbrushed and photoshopped. Like, you're not going to put a bad photo yourself up. Like let's be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember meeting an influencer that I had like really followed closely and admired when I was trying to learn how to get fit. And now like I ended up meeting her as like a professional colleague, and she like admitted to me that she photoshopped all of her pictures back that like made herself look thinner than she actually was. And I was like, I mean, I was just like speechless. Like, I didn't know how to take that when you're face to face with someone. You're like, oh, okay. And I was just like, the wool gets pulled off of your eyes. I think you're right. Like, and I mean, my following is nowhere near where yours is. Like, I have like 25,000, but like, even still, just like, I guess knowing people in the biz, like, I have definitely learned there's different camps, and there's the people who are completely okay with taking advantage of other people like that. They will not even bat an eye on that. And then I like, yeah, I had to go through that process too of like, of course I want to be successful, but that's like taking advantage of people is not successful to me. Like, I would also like to be able to sleep at night and know that I made an impact in the world. Like, that's also success, not just money and followers. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that.
The second caveat I'd say to this as well, this just sounds like I'm demonizing the fitness industry and influencers, is like, I'm all up for people having a drink and having a good time. But like, when like, I like to lead a healthy life and practice what I preach, and that's what I show every day. Like, I love training, love eating healthy, I love like learning. But when like you see quote unquote like instant influencers who like they look awesome, but all they do is like go out, drink, do drugs, do whatever, you're like, it's so but then the next day you see them in expo and they're like, they're with all their fans who are fanboying, and you're like, it's so disingenuous. And when you see it from both sides, you're like, I can't, the first time I saw that, I can't even, because I was newer to the fitness industry, a bit more green in, I couldn't really quantify how bad it made me feel, if that made sense, just for the facade of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had like both experiences personally. Like, I've met some where it's like you talk to someone, you're like, dang, you live what you preach. Actually, you're not even showing as much of like how many good habits you have and how real you are. There are those people too. And I find you can kind of tell if you listen to your gut, if you listen to your intuition, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell somebody's heart by the way they're coming across, so.
I'm going to give an excellent example of this, and this is a name drop. So, have you heard of Joseph Rakic?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was going to Thailand, and we were messaging on Instagram, and he was going at the same time. So we booked him to go to the same hotels. We could train together and do some stuff, whatever. And I told my wife, like, oh, this dude's like, he's got a massive following, blah, 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 blah. So literally sat down at breakfast the next day. He turns up at breakfast with like a packet of microwave rice and 2 tins of tuna, and gets the like guy to eat it up. And instantly I'm like, not necessarily people like this should do that. I was like, fair play. Like,
yeah.
like literally, and you're like, instantly respect, because like you practice what you preach, and for me
Right.
that's like, as soon as I see that, I'm like, you are very genuine to what you preach, and you're the way you help and educate people. And again, Joseph actually is getting married today, is a funny thing.
Oh, that's
um
cool.
he, like, my wife even says like, oh, is that guy you're meeting? Like, it wasn't what I was expecting at all, because he's so down to earth and like normal.
Mm,
And that's like just a great example of someone who practices what they preach. And when I find someone like that, when I
hmm.
first meet them, like, I just buy into people like that straight away and just love them.
Yeah, because you know that he's like so much of his intention is like he knows he has something and he wants to share that with other people,
Yeah.
right? There's two different ways. I was actually thinking about this randomly before our interview. I was like, there's it's kind of becoming like trendy or popular to want to be a coach, right? Especially like a fitness coach. And I guess if anybody out there listening to this is what I was thinking that I'd love to share is like make sure that it's not about you. Make sure it's not about your ego. Like I'm gonna be a superstar coach that's famous and live on the beach while I work remotely. Like if that's your intention, if it's about you, you're gonna suck. Just being real. And you're gonna turn into one of those people he's talking about. But if your intention is like first you have to have something, don't like I truly, and I know you know too, like I know deep in my heart, like I know that a lot of people would like to live the way that I live. I know I've got something to share, right? And so because of that I do. And it's a fit and it gives me confidence because I'm like I know that I have value to share with people and insights because I'm living it. I'm living it. You know, I'm doing this bikini like crazy thing right now, but that's not my normal MO. My normal MO is yeah, like I get joy out of nourishing my body too. So yeah, um, I think like I don't know, it's important to examine in ourselves like what are the motivations, right? Like, yeah, you're gonna have to see yourself and believe in yourself and all, you know, there's gonna be some self-work. But if your deepest motivation is to share goodness with other people and help pull them up and fan their fires, like, man, you're going to have such a more successful and happy journey as well.
The one thing I say that as well is it's very easy, um, for anyone listening as they go up through Instagram or whatever they're doing through social media world, to get led astray, because like you can get people get very much dragged into the vanity metrics of like, oh, I'll just post like 1,000 ab selfie, like ab video
Mhm.
selfies with abs out, and then you get loads of likes. It's like, cool, that doesn't necessarily help you. And I remember one of the best things someone said to me, he was actually my first business coach mentor, and he was like, your Instagram content, it makes you look like a narcissistic prick. And I was like, I looked at it and I was like, I can sort of see your point. And then, like, because you have to look at the way you're perceived from the outside if people don't know you. And
Mhm.
I still sometimes find it difficult to maybe put myself across how I'd want to come across, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah, me too.
It's a difficult one, because you can get portrayed like yourself. Obviously, you're a nice looking lady, politely in an English way, and like people can like assume, make assumptions of you, and they make assumptions of me, and they like, and people don't know you, they don't know me, and then they make assumptions straight away, and that's what
Mhm.
frustrates me.
Mhm.
And like, it's easily done, and I do the same thing, and it's something I'm trying to unlearn, that bad habit. But I
Mhm.
think we should give people the benefit of the doubt more times than we do, probably, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, like just yesterday I got a message from somebody saying like she was like she wanted a refund because from my program because she didn't like how I was earning my value through my body with my bikini competition and I'm like no I like I'm not doing that like I'm trying so hard to tell you that I'm doing a self experiment and I'm driving into the hole but it's like man you post a selfie like people are going to take that how they want, So yeah, it is I'd say you're right. I agree with you that like these longer format like videos, it's like I feel like I can get my soul out a little bit more so people can see where I'm coming from versus like a selfie shot. I mean, that's assumption mania.
So you mentioned that they gave you a lot of shit. I'm going to say one that I put a post up that caused like uproar with other like influencers who are in the industry, who, the sort of people I said before who are very negative about putting things down. I put a post up, and actually, to be fair, it was a little bit of a negative post, but I was trying to spin it in a positive way. I basically said that guys who have dad bods have failed the younger versions of themselves, because when they were younger, they aspire to look like action heroes, not like being overweight, which
Mhm.
is realistic because
Mhm.
when you're
Mhm.
like, I don't know, you're 12 years old, 14 years old, you want to look like James Bond, you want to look
Right.
like the
Yeah.
Terminator, whatever. Like you don't want to be look like Homer Simpson. Like let's be
Yeah.
straight up.
It's tough
So
love.
like,
But it's true.
yeah, and then that's all I was trying to say in the caption of saying like you need to set a higher standard for yourself because
Mhm.
when you were younger, that's not who you aspired to be, and you need to have a bit of a wake up call. But some people just cannot take sometimes the
I
whole
know.
truth, and like I want people to be brutally honest with me, like even if it's going to crush my soul and upset me, I'd rather you said like,
Yeah.
look, Charlie, you're shit at this. Like just go and do something else. Like I know, for example, I haven't got the genetic capability to go and win classic Mr. Olympia or something like that. So I'm not going to put my life and soul into that because it's not going to happen. And people would tell me. And it's the same thing with that. Like people need to be able to take constructive feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, 100%. And it's, it's such a sensitive industry that we're in because I find that, and I've really honestly been trying so hard to be able to like put this into words, and I don't think I've actually found them yet, but it's like there's this confusion, like the spirituality, the connection between like being spiritual and being confident and loving who you are and knowing that you're not your body. And then but also the simultaneous desire to build your body and have a nice physique and to be free and to, not have excess body fat. There's like a lot of confusion there. And so I find that like if it's weird. It's like if I could probably build a bigger following and get a lot if I was just preaching a bunch of like you're perfect the way you are stuff. But the real reality is like I work with people one on one and I know you're not okay with how your body is. And if you truly understand that you aren't your body, you can look at it as feedback instead of looking in the mirror and seeing a bunch of belly fat and being like, "Ooh, gross, what's wrong with you?" You can actually just say like that's not me. This is just the vessel that I'm in and my current choices are getting me that and I don't want to have that anymore. So I am powerful enough to change that. But people sometimes aren't ready to hear that message. They're so associated with their body is their value that they hear you say something like that and they're like, "Ugh, ugh, like, how dare you?" And it's like, no, because we work with people one on one and we know that deep down you do want to change it. You're not okay with how it is. So we're trying to help you get there. And sometimes you're not going to like what we have to say, but it's the truth.
And that's reality. I don't care anyone who's listening. Anyone, if you're overweight, you know you're not happy.
I know.
Fact.
Yep.
Fact. And again, this is not being like if someone, for example, is struggling financially, you're not going to be happy about that. And it's like people say, "Oh,
Right.
money doesn't matter." I was like, I'm pretty sure it does matter when you don't have it. Like, it's always very relative. And again, as money isn't everything in life, and your body's not everything, like money doesn't like necessarily bring happiness or fulfillment. And then also, like sometimes I've been the most like I look back now, and I was like the most unhappy with the way I looked when I was actually looked my best. Like
Hmm.
I got so even a few months ago, like I was in really good shape. I tend to do like shoots normally always every year on my birthday, just it just seems to be a habit now. And like in December, I was like, I don't know, I just wasn't. I looked insane, but I look back now and I was like, I wasn't happy at the time. And it's funny how you can get led down the garden path, and people will look up to you, look up to me, and they'll be like, "Oh, he's got everything. He's got to be super happy. You should be over the moon with that." But you again, it comes to what we were talking earlier about scaling the mountain. You get to one summit, you're like, okay, this is don't feel any different. I don't feel fulfilled. Let's get to the next summit, and you then get into that paradigm of chasing the sunset, and that's not where happiness will ever find you, because happiness will find you within enjoyment from the process. And again, I'm not slagging off keto. It comes back to the process of making it sustainable, and you be able to enjoy your lifestyle with doing things to then get to the end goal, which is what I try and showcase in terms of my life with what I do, that I can go out, travel, enjoy myself, and I can still do everything I want whilst achieving my fitness goals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think if we get our intrinsic value as a human being wrapped up into our achievements, then we're going to be miserable because it's never going to be enough. But once we truly like know, when we do that self work, so I'm really big on meditation and lots of personal development work and seeing my own shadows, and my clients do that too. But like once, so my symbol for my coaching, you keep talking about climbing the mountain, so it just keeps making me think. I love the mountains. I live in Utah where there's so many beautiful mountains.
So
It's like
good.
epic movie scene everywhere, and they've been so healing for me, and I love them. And I am a climber, a striver, like a go-getter, like I always have been ever since I can remember, like I just freaking love, it's just more fun to achieve and do cool shit to me than to just like not. So, but what I've learned that my symbol is it's going up a mountain and then you go inside and there's an eagle that flies out of the center, because if you want, like we think that we have to just like strive and strive and strive and strive and strive. But if we'll go inside and heal that stuff inside, we can fly higher than any top of any mountain, way higher than we ever thought possible. And so you speak of like going, being unhappy with your body or being unhappy with your income. It's not that being fitter or being richer is going to make you happy. It's that relationship with self, that that you can, that you have what it takes, that you are so powerful. That's not what gives you the value. You give yourself the value, and then you can see that you are capable of doing all of those things. And I think that brings us back to your original point of belief in yourself. That's where it all starts.
and,
So yeah.
and that's when you've got an unlimited, limitless life, when you suddenly realize that everything is within your own conscious control in your
Yep.
decisions. If you want to become a pilot, you can go and do that. If you want to go and move to Australia, you can do that. If you want to do whatever, like
Right.
ultimately your life is an accumulation of the choices you've decided to make. And
Yep.
if you're not where you want to be, then that's probably because of some of the choices you've made. And it's now up to you to make the right choice for the rest of your life, if that makes sense.